please.
So we are Team TODO, and we have the video processing server. Just to recap on that again, we are the back end in the whole video processing, the two video processing projects. And what we're tasked to do is we're expecting videos to show up in a database, and then we want to be able to schedule these videos with specified video processing algorithms. And so we have built an API to be able to communicate seamlessly with this database, as well as a processing manager that pings the API, which gets information from the database, then runs specified algorithms, returns back the results. And I don't know if we specified this very well in the last presentations, but the API and the process manager are completely separate, so they're not one application. They could be disconnected and run on different servers if need be. So first thing I'll do is I'll go over test coverage. This is our test coverage. It's practically 100%. The only reason that this branch is not covered is this is a default parameter, which we spoke to Venkat about. However, we were having problems implementing the suggestions he gave. The library, the framework wasn't being stubbed like we needed it to. It was calling the actual library instead of the stubs that we were giving it for some reason. But the actual implementation is completely tested. So when we pass in functions as parameters, everything works accordingly. There are still a few main files, so like the files where we actually run our code, where we piece all our modules together. Those don't have tests, but I think Venkat very recently said in JavaScript they should have tests. So we need to do that as well, but all the logic is being tested right here. Regarding additions, one of the first things we tackled was the fact regarding the race conditions that Venkat spoke about. So one issue that we had was the fact that if two different instances of a process manager is being run and they both ping the API or APIs, and they're going to get back the same videos to run, and then they're going to be processing the same videos at the same time and wasting resources. And so one thing that we did is we implemented inside the database, we implemented an array called pending. And we spoke to the sponsor about this, and this is what he suggested. So when the API is pinged, it will initially store all the algorithms that are being requested in pending once it sends out the videos for processing. So the way we did this is a little different, because we try to keep the atomic updates intact, so there's no race conditions going on. So what actually happens is we use a functionality called fetch and modify, which at the same time that it's fetching a field, it updates it to an empty list. So it does that in a seamless operation. Thus, once it asks for one specific document, it is going to clear this request array and return that document. So therefore, there's not going to be a step where, oh, you retrieve the document, then you move the algorithms over, then you send it back, in which case there could be race conditions. So in that way, all potential load balancing issues or race conditions should be resolved, because if the information is retrieved, then this field will be empty. And the only way that we search for documents is if this field has values in it. So any other instance of the API will be looking for documents which have something in the requests field. And so basically, what this allows is obviously for the process manager to be able to get the videos, and then it will remove the algorithms from the pending array. I'll show that in a second. But let me just show off the API real quickly. So if I were to go here and I would ask for a GET request to retrieve the videos, it would give me these two videos. They have test algo 2, and test algo. Well, let me see if I can zoom this in.
Thank you.
Is it getting any better?
Much better.
Okay. So, as you can see, the way that the request is sent from the atomic update is the pending fields have not been updated. They're still in the request field. So we get the original document back. That's what causes no race conditions in that sense. But, so we got these algorithms in the requests, but if you go back to the database and refresh it, we will see that the algorithms are now in the pending field. And so what should happen is the process manager will come and remove them from the pending field now instead of the requests field. And so I can also show off the process manager side of things. Let me update this. Okay, so
You spell
so it's going to call the database in 5 seconds. And okay, so process the results. And here we should be able to see that just like before, it seems like we don't have anything in the pending array, and now we have an object for test algo with the results for that algorithm. And that is it updating from the pending array. The reason there's a pending array in there, as we spoke about before, is because if an algorithm has an error along the way, we don't want to remove that algorithm from the database. So in this case, the process manager is going to be sending back all algorithms it processed to be removed from the pending array, and only the ones that it completely processed. One thing that we will be implementing in the future, and we have to still speak to the sponsor about this, is instead of a pending array, we probably do a pending object and have timestamps for every algorithm. And given a specific amount of time, if these results are still pending, we would probably remove them or figure out something else to do with them. Because in the event that an algorithm does fail, it would continue to stay in the pending array. So after some period of time, we'd probably move it back into the requests array so it can be processed. Another feature that we added was authentication on the API side. So we added a key which the API checks for in order to be able to submit a result to the API. And so on the process manager side, it sends out a password, and on the API side, it checks it against, it hashes the password and then checks it against pre-stored hashes. So we don't actually store the passwords on the API side. And I can go ahead and show that as well. Okay, so in this case, the key is this is a bad password, and everything else is intact. And okay, so it's when we send this, it should say results successfully submitted. I think it was this. Yeah, okay, so yeah, it updated one of the data points in test algo. And then if we were to, for some reason, give it a wrong password, I'm just going to remove the D in this case, it will say unauthorized. If for some reason this entire field was missing and we sent that request, it would also say unauthorized. And so that's some form of authentication that we did. So it's, since the API is only going to be communicating with the process manager, and that is going to be the specified process manager, the sponsor said there isn't really a need for a more complicated authentication system for now. Clearly, at this moment, there's a flaw in the system because the keys aren't, or the communication isn't encrypted, so there could be a man in the middle that catches the key, but the sponsor said not to worry about that. So it's up to him. So besides that, I'm trying to think of what else. We also Dockerized all our code as the sponsor requested. Can't really show that off. I mean, we can show you the Docker images, but running it wouldn't really make any sense because we wouldn't be able to show you any output. So yeah, we Dockerized all our code, and furthermore, we did a lot of refactoring for this iteration. So given the fact that we are coming to a close on this project, it's been mostly going back and changing a few things and removing redundancies and things like that. So regarding our iteration backlog, so we performed refactoring, added more robust tests, added the pending field to database, atomic updates with the pending field, which prevented race conditions, authentication on the API side with hashes, authentication on the process manager side, Dockerization of both the API and the process manager. So beyond this, when it comes to the iteration backlog, we only have a few things left, and we still need to talk it over with the sponsor because these are ideas that we've more recently come across. The timestamp idea of adding timestamp to pending requests in order to be able to put them back for processing if they stay there too long. Better logging is something that we also would like to do, and potentially encryption of API communications. Besides that, at this point, I think all features have been met as far as what we've spoken to with the sponsor. That's it.
That's it. Thank you.